Ciao, and welcome back to the 17th episode of the iMovie podcast, in which this week we are going to be talking about an animated film that is, I think, 212th.
Yeah, exactly.
On the Letterboxd Top 250 list, because this is the podcast where every other week we go through one of the films on the top 250 list on Letterboxd, and we discuss it and give our initial thoughts and breakdown and reaction. And it's out of order, so last week we were way up in the top 10 with The Shawshank Redemption, and now we're relatively low down with Song of the Sea. Although it's worth keeping in mind that even though this film is low down in the top 250, in the grand scheme of Letterboxd, it's still in the grand scheme of all the films that exist, all the millions of films that exist on Letterboxd, it's still among the top 250, so it's extremely high rated.
Yeah, very. Very, but not the other ones of the same director, who is Tomm Moore. So...
Are they not high rated?
No, they're not as in the 250, it's the only one. Because this film is part of a trilogy called Irish Folklore Trilogy, which sees in first place, the first one came out in 2009 and is The Secrets of the Kells. Then we have Song of the Sea, and then we have Wolfwalkers, which is the only one that we've seen before that I really fell in love with and Clem liked.
Yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. And so, yeah, now it was finally time to see this one, and we did it. So this was the trilogy. And now maybe we're going into the plot. And Clem will...
So we'll quickly go through the story, and then we'll play a clip for you guys to kind of get you in the mood. So Song of the Sea, which is an animated film, I think for children, but also can be appreciated by adults, is a story about a family who live initially in a lighthouse, and a young boy and his little sister, and their mother disappeared around the time of the sister's birth in circumstances that remain mysterious at the beginning of the film. And the film is kind of set 6 years later, and it's about the relationship between the brother and the sister and their slightly oppressive grandmother and their slightly absent-minded father, who is still mourning the loss of his wife and who displays slightly preferential treatment towards his daughter. And all of those themes are developed and also connect to a supernatural world of folklore and fairy tale. And we'll play a clip now.
Be quiet, Ben. Get in the car and stop all this carry on.
Dad! Dad, tell her I won't go. Please, Dad. I'm staying with you. Dad! No, Dad, no! It's Saoirse's fault, not mine. Why do I have to go? Don't make me go. Let me out.
Stop it, Ben! Will you?
Yeah, so basically you can already see the magical aspect of this film already from the illustration and animation. I think it's one of the most stunning, and that's what captured my attention a lot also with Wolfwalkers, and what I really like about this studio and especially Tomm Moore. And also it's super intricate with, yes, as we said, the Irish folklore and the mythology, the Norse and Celtic mythology, and that's very intricate with the story, and you can really perceive it, even if we have to admit that neither of us is an expert in this field, and yet you can grasp the cultural background and importance that this simple story in the end is given to us, the spectators.
And I think it's possibly the same with Wolfwalkers, although maybe more so here, as I think the space that's shown, the space the characters are in within the film, is very loosely attached to reality. So you often have very surreal animation that isn't based in a world as we know it, but instead attaches kind of symbolic visuals that represent the worlds that the characters are inhabiting or the feelings that the characters have in a much more surrealist way than traditional animation, I'd say. And that's a big part. I mean, you that happens from the very start, so you really get used to being in that world, I think. I don't think it was so much the case in Wolfwalkers, actually. Not that I can remember, but it definitely is more the case here.
You mean like the symbolic,
Yes,
let's say
yes.
the language that is just, that belongs basically just to this world that we are entering?
Well, my
language
thing
is
is like
cinematic.
the Wolfwalkers, for example, the way in which it's animated is mostly linear and like connected. I mean, it's obviously it's supernatural because there's talking wolves and whatever and magic and stuff. But the way in which it's animated is mostly you see the story, whereas I felt like in Song of the Sea often there's things that are more symbolic. By which I mean, for example, there's an opening sequence where you see some characters and they're like in the middle of the ocean with different ocean creatures swimming around, and you're not meant to literally think they're in that space. It's more symbolic, and that occurs at different points throughout the film, I think.
Yeah, because I think the reason is that it's more attached to the mythology and the folklore of Ireland compared to Wolfwalkers, which is still connected, I guess, but not as much, I would say. Yes, it's more like a story of in itself. And still with beautiful like magical elements and hand drawing mixed with computer animation in a very cool way, to be honest. It's very beautiful. But maybe what also can help in terms of style and aesthetic in the Song of the Sea is also the fact that we read before, okay, it's also very visible. Like the background and the flashbacks are watercolored, painted, and that I think adds maybe some elements of unknown, uncertain / a bit blurred lines that can help even more this message of, not this message, but this delivering of the message that is more symbolic and maybe not, let's say, is more layered. So you grasp what you grasp at first view, which is maybe more connected to what kids could grasp. And then you can see more layers as the more you go into, maybe the Irish mythology, Celtic mythology.
I think a lot of the feelings the children specifically, because they really are the protagonists through which we see the story, a lot of the feelings that they have are relatable beyond national boundaries or culturally specific stories, but are almost universal. And then I think beyond that, there's also a lot of things that will strike a chord, particularly for people who grew up in Ireland or who grew up surrounded by those fairy tales, as some reviews on Letterboxd have pointed out. Because some people on Letterboxd said, it's really nice to see the stories they grew up with visualized in a sense. So I think it operates on different levels in that way.
And also, a few people were also mentioning, or a few blogs and stuff, were also mentioning some similarities with other stories told in Ireland, it's cinematographic stories. So the film that appeared the most, and I'm now curious to watch, to be honest, if you watched it, give us your impressions, or say if it's like worth watching. But it's quite high rated on Letterboxd, and it's The Secret of Rowan Inish, of which pronunciation I might have mistaken, directed by John Sayles in 1994. So that's also like something that somehow makes it a bit of let's say national cinema within their culture and their way to know each other and to know the cinematographic sphere and environment.
When we watched Wolfwalkers, which is also very Irish specific, with Irish folklore and Irish history.
An accent.
It's a film that focuses partly focuses on the situation between Britain and Ireland. And this film, Song of the Sea, which is set in the early 1980s, which is kind of in the middle of the Troubles, or I mean, it's a period which was very tense in Ireland and kind of in the middle of the Civil War and fight for independence, is actually manages to stay clear of that subject. And I think it's interesting because I think when you Irish media that's set in the 70s or 80s, you almost automatically assume that it will play around those topics.
But maybe that's the response, especially maybe adapted to children, which is how do I also stand my point or make my point, is by showing some parts that might go forgotten, or just simply some parts that we don't consider of Ireland with its culture, like the whole stories that go with it. So it's like maybe I'm not telling you you terrible Britain, but I'm telling you, look what we have, look at the knowledge that we produced and we are keeping producing, and the fantastic animation that we can have, and how we can also have layered stories.
No, yeah, and especially because it's also through the eyes of children, so it's
and it is very much through the eyes of children, as in Shawshank Redemption it was through the eyes of Red. Now it's really through the eyes of Ben mostly, which is the main character, the child, the brother. And in a sense also we can connect it to Ben, also how the animation is built, as we were both struck. We got both struck by a scene which is towards the beginning when Ben and Saoirse go with the grandmother besides their desire. And so Ben is trying in his mind, but also physically, to draw the map that they of their path, so that he can then come back to not only his father but also the dog Coop. And that transition is so great, and it's so child-based, because it really seems like the hand drawing of a child, and with the reference points of a child. So it's like there was one hill that was called like the strange shape to hill or something like that, and for me it was like, okay, you're really trying to talk to children and to understand children, even if at the same time I think it's very much talking to children, but also very much talking to parents and educational, because as you said, like the dad clearly had some preferences towards the daughter. And that is very much shown how he's...
he shows more affection towards her, at least.
Yeah, but he doesn't listen at all to Ben, and Ben exists. Ben is not seen and not listened to, and that then creates potentially many problems, even if then the children can, between each other, find a solution and work it out together. So again, the power and the ability to get on in life is given to children. So that's something that I very much appreciate, is like not diminishing their world, but actually giving value to it.
I think it's important always to, when showing the lives of quite young children, which of course usually always are not written by children, it's always quite difficult to find that balance between having the simplicity of childhood and the complexity of a child's feelings. But I think this film manages to do that quite well, especially because it soon kind of enters a world of adventure beyond what we could expect, and once it enters that world, I think the film gains pace and gains new life once they leave the grandmas and go out into the explore the world. And I think that feeling of adventure and of seeing things with a kind of fearless, childlike wonder is very well depicted in the film.
Yeah, and it's also somehow the typical arc of the fairy tales. It's like the child that is immature, and then he, in this case, goes through a journey that makes him mature. He gains independence with this, and that's, let's say, the classical, because also there are many classical elements in this sense. So that's also very interesting how everything is combined. And
yeah, I agree. It's also interesting because there's a lot of Ghibliesque visuals and moments, and it reminded me of a few different Ghibli films. And again, it's that sense of childlike wonder, but it reminded me a bit of Ponyo for some reason, not
Okay.
because of any
Hmm.
story, but it's kind of, Ponyo's also set by the sea, and it's
Yeah.
about like two children's relationship to each other, and it also combines a lot of children and adults.
Yes, and even the
And
child.
there's an absent father who kind of works a maritime job.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that, but it's like the vibe in general. And then,
Yes,
of course,
of
the
course.
witch, Matcha. We'll probably talk about her later, but that's very much reminded me of Howl's Moving
Yes.
Castle.
Yeah, of course, there were like some scenes that it really looked like not only House Moving Castle, but for me also Spirited Away
Yeah.
a lot. Because also in this case, then you understand that Matcha is not only a bad person
Yeah.
or goddess. She just couldn't bear her emotions, and
Well,
so
yeah, no.
and so she silenced them. And that's also, again, like the importance of feeling what you're feeling and express it and let it go, let it out. Pain is important. If you keep it in, then you implode, and all the world around you does the same. So that's also very metaphorically very well expressed, and it's very clear and very also explicit, so which is very good, I think, for children.
And she even looks, when she loses all her powers and she becomes all skinny, she even looks a bit like the witch from Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah. It's
who
true.
also loses her powers and becomes like frail and old.
Well, we have to admit that those films are extremely influential.
Yes.
So I understand, I see why. Especially if you're in animation, you can really love that. And but also I wanted to add before, when you drew some similarities with the Ponyo, also the fact that the child is approaching the sea. The child goes towards their potential fear, or is not afraid of. In this case, we have two. We have Ben, who is extremely afraid of the water. Also, I think connected to the mom that traumatized, the mom's death, of course, traumatized him. Opposed to Saoirse, who is actually super attracted by the water because, spoiler, I guess, or not really, I don't know. She's a Selkie.
Well, it's interesting because both Ponyo and Song of the Sea deal with the magic of the sea a lot. And we were saying a few weeks ago that, off camera, that the sea is cinematically almost always a scary place, a negative place, from Titanic to Jaws to whatever,
to even
Pacific Rim. It's a deep and scary place that is usually assigned to horror or to, a challenging journey, or even going back to like Greek texts. In Greek mythology, the sea is a challenging place with a scary god who's gonna
can destroy
mess you up. But I think, it's nice because I think Ponyo and Song of the Sea, both of them show that the sea can be a terrible place, a scary place, but they also do show the magic of the sea, through the sea creatures and through the visuals, which are enchanting for both. And I think that's also nice to have that kind of reverse image, because as the name Song of the Sea suggests, it's also a film that is about the sea, and it's about the good side of that rather than the same old scary sea.
And also because I think the film teaches you to try to explore your fear, and then understand that the scariest place on earth or outside the earth can still have some elements that are welcoming and you can like and appreciate, as in everything, like getting some nuances and go over some also prejudices. I think that's all this symbolism that is in this film. I like. It's maybe not so original or unseen, but it's very well done. So I understand also, in the sense, why it's so high rated, to be honest.
No, yeah, I agree. And yes, although it's interesting because you preferred maybe the Wolfwalkers, which isn't in the top 250, or am I wrong in saying that?
No, it's not in the top 250. I do prefer that.
So maybe you need to see this one again.
I think so, because but maybe because, again, when you start to fall in love with a certain style and hand drawing and also of screenplay, to be honest. Then I guess, the first love really stays with you, as it was actually the same with The Green Mile or The Shawshank Redemption. Also, okay, I have very different ages, but it's like, okay, the first time that you get emotionally involved, then it stays with you. So I guess in that sense, I prefer the Wolfwalkers, and maybe this is slightly more original / there is the aspect of, I don't love the sea, I do love mountains and forests and stuff. So I think that's, I am also somehow scared potentially of the sea. Or it's something that doesn't, while the mountain calms me, or in general it's supposed to calm people more than the sea. The sea, gives you some movement, and its dynamic is strong. It has its power that it can be, as we said, like it can destroy you and bring you with it. So maybe that's also why I don't click as much.
And you haven't even seen Jaws yet. We can only imagine
haven't.
what that will be like when you do see it. Do you remember which was the first Ghibli film you saw?
I think could have been The House Moving Castle, without the House Moving Castle. Yours?
I have no idea. But no, okay, interesting. Well, I think also an island, as the name suggests, it's an island, which is obviously when you live surrounded by the sea, and the characters in this film literally live in a lighthouse right by the sea. That obviously it's unavoidably going to be part of your collective, firstly of your mythology, but also somehow of your
heritage.
Your cultural heritage also. And that's very much clearly the case
absolutely.
in Song of the Sea.
Absolutely. Even if, again, like playing with some cliche, and not just to, represent your culture, but also some cliche. Even, for example, when the mom died at the beginning and it seemed a childbirth death, then I liked how they developed it and made it into something more connected to the Celtic roots, which I very much appreciated. Because at the beginning I was a bit like, classic cliche, of course the mom dies and only the dead remains. But then there's a reason.
There's also the, maybe not cliche, but integration of an element of Irish folk music, folk, which is the music sequence, where some of the characters break into song, into Irish folk music. And I think it was also nice to have that musical sequence because it's another reminder of... Although, again, it could be cliched, especially in a children's film.
Yeah, but also somehow it's the title of the song too, of the film too.
But I don't think this is also the type of film that necessarily is striving to break cliches.
No, I agree, exactly. No, not at all.
Not really, at least. It does probably some, but... Yeah.
Yes, I guess so, but absolutely, that's not the goal, I guess. And of course, the song is super important because also it's an element of communality and collectiveness that also connects some the children to actually the mythology. So because they meet the Tony She, which are these three men, and then they turn into
I don't remember.
rocks. They are these elder people who have, of course, a big cultural knowledge. And they're only connected by this song that the mom used to sing to the children, and especially to Ben. And so this was also, music as a connection, to different things, to people and to your roots, which I think is very beautiful. And it was also very beautiful music too.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah. So I was going to say also, for any voice actor amateurs, there is a famous Irish actor, Brendan Gleeson, who also, of course, does also appear in The Banshees of Inisherin, who makes an appearance in the film, and we were as the father of Ben and Sasha, and as Ben and Sasha's father, and I'd at least picked up halfway through the film that it was him, or at least I suspected it to be him, and then I was happy to have my suspicions confirmed afterwards. It does seem to be quite a small pool of Irish actors. Brendan Gleeson often comes up, Colin Farrell often comes up,
that's true.
Cillian Murphy often comes up, and of course Saoirse Ronan also often comes up. And those four seem to be the ones who are like the standout Irish actors.
But I
I'd
wonder
say.
if I agree, and I understand in a Hollywoodian context or more international context, but I wonder if in this case it was also because they maybe dubbed also the Irish version, because there is an Irish version of this film, like Irish dubbed. So maybe since they are able to speak, I guess, at this point.
I'm not sure that they would be. I don't know.
We
I
can
don't
check
know.
it out and then maybe we can let you know.
I think it depends on the age and where you grew up, and
So yeah, all these elements, Irish elements, and even, and this you noticed, the Connors of the Dead also is represented by a cliff. So the dead is also represented by the giant McLear, who is like, yes, this face-shaped rock cliff that is somehow the source of everything, because is the son of the witch Mata, who is like destroying everything because she's suffering too much because of her son living in that condition. So that's everything is intricated, and the adults appear also in the mythology. I like the connection of everything, the entanglement.
no, yeah, it's true. I don't know if he's represented as much, but he certainly like parallels between them.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, the
they're played by the same actor
dubber is the
also,
same.
Brendan Gleeson.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's, they also, the animation, the physical appearance of them is also quite similar. So,
but I think,
yes.
we got a few elements that reinforce
Yes.
this theory slash parallelism.
Yes, I think his story also symbolizes the one of the dead, because they're both looking for their long lost lives and whatever.
And even like the dad in the end lives in the lighthouse,
Yes.
also on the top of the cliff.
Yes,
So the cliff is really himself isolated, alone, and suffering. It's really, it's
we understood the film.
We did understand the film, hopefully. Maybe some elements will come back also later in the future. So we want also to add this new
segment,
which is, since we are Letterboxd pros, as we say in our description, and we love spending time on Letterboxd, then we would like to also
find some of our favorite reviews, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
For each film that we talk about,
because we love to go through reviews, so we save some and we share them with you.
And the first review, well, the only one I really picked out, was actually about Saoirse Ronan, and it was kind of, and I've saved it, but and I'll post it on the screen so it'll appear here. And it's about how Saoirse Ronan will be happy because people will finally learn how to pronounce her name because of this film.
It's true.
Which
it's
never easy to pronounce her name.
And my review, which I think represents very much the whole atmosphere, is by Ethan, a Patreon user, and says there's a certain type of comfort in finally experiencing the bedtime stories you wish you had as a child. Yes, it's so true. There's like childhood coming to life somehow, and this is, I think, super well representing how I felt during this film.
Yes, as we mentioned before, it's nice to have that type of story really brought to life in a sense. Yeah,
it's true. It's like, finally you can realize what you were feeling. Even I think as being like Tomm Moore, but also for them might have been a bit cathartical. What do you think about the ranking in the top 250?
No, I think I'm happy with it being in the top 250. I gave 4 stars, but it's not particularly high up the list, so I think it's fine as it is. Are there films lower rated that I would rate higher? Yes. Are there films that I rated that I would rate lower? Yes. So would you put it in your specific top 250? My personal top 250. Well, it's, as I always say, it's hard because it's hard to gauge top 250. But yeah, probably if I did, it'd probably be around the same place as it is now. So. Do you prefer these or Wolfwalkers? I have to say that I don't remember Wolfwalkers too clearly. I enjoyed both. I think probably about the same. Maybe I like the visuals of this one a little more, but probably I was a bit more engaged with the story of Wolfwalkers, which I imagine would probably be what most people's reaction would be, because I think the visuals here may be a little more original and appealing. potentially, and the story of Wolfwalkers is more. The story here is very nice, but it has got that kind of dreamy surrealness. Whereas in
Yeah.
Wolfwalkers, you're kind of thrown into it, and it's unavoidable.
It's true.
So yeah,
It's true. I like this surrealist element that you brought up. It's true. I agree. And for me, it deserves to be in the top 250. Yes. Maybe in a certain way more than Wolfwalkers in terms of, I think, the animation technique, how it's used and combined with the plot. So I like that more in this
a bit
case.
more ambitious, maybe.
More ambitious,
I don't know
more.
if that's fair, though.
I don't know either, but I don't know if it's more ambitious, but for sure it's more connected, I think, to the plot. Not that Wolfwalker is not, because I think they work together so greatly too. And in a certain way, maybe Wolfwalker's animation is even a bit better quality. This said,
But it come out about. I think it came out like 10 years.
yeah,
later,
it came out in 2020, so 6 years
6
later.
years,
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes sense. And it still gives you, because you know what attracts me really is like the magical aspect, because it's really visually there, and also in the story and everything with the sounds, the music, everything is perfectly magical, which is what somehow I look for also in children films, animated films, but maybe also non-animated. And so in this sense, maybe for the innovation, I don't know how innovative it can be, but let's say there are some innovative elements. I would put it more in the top 250. Even a bit higher for me would work. Even like between 150 and 200, I would say. And I would probably rank Wolfwalkers a bit higher in my personal, as emotional list. But I'm glad that one of these three, at least, I mean, if we've seen only two, is in the top 250.
Yeah.
And allows us also to discuss it and to talk about this style and the genre and
Yes.
even a director, to be honest.
Yeah.
And even this country.
I have to say that I didn't really know much about this trilogy or these films before watching Wolfwalkers and then this one, to be honest. So I'm glad to have learned about it.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful experience.
So
which
yeah,
we recommend.
that's all for Song of the Sea. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? About it? Would you have it in your top 250? And we will see you in 2 weeks' time with our next video. Don't know what it'll be about yet. Like, subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe.
And
Ciao.